in my opinion, the thing that we need to learn from all of this is the importance of democracy and socialism, that there is no true socialism without democracy, and there's no democracy without socialism, that capitalist democracy is a partial, bourgeois democracy is a partial thing, but if we really want democracy, then we're going to have economic democracy as well as political democracy.
Well, I'm not so concerned about where people were in terms of their vision of socialism or what their socialist lodestar was, as where they think they're going in terms of building a socialist future. I think it's open what socialism is because it will be democratically created or it won't be socialism. And if you've ever been in a democratic society or organization, people don't agree. So if socialism doesn't have political freedom and pluralism, I agree fully with what you said. You're not the only person in the world. I mean, socialism has to deepen political democracy and extend civil rights and civil liberties by democratizing the economic and social and sexual spheres. But it doesn't abolish political democracy. It has to enrich it. We don't have full political democracy in this country, but there is a difference between the repressive apparatus we have now, and it can get much worse, and we have to fight to keep as much civil liberties as possible. But to answer the first part of the question, I mean, I think even if we're not sure we know every contradiction in capitalism, nor do we know what inexorable tendencies will eventually lead to socialism. I think socialism is an open question. I don't think it's inevitable. But what I do know is inevitable is that the global neoliberal model of capitalism that has reigned for the past 35 years among corporate elites, that you search the globe for the lowest production costs, and you exploit labor, and you destroy unions, even in advanced industrial capitalist societies. You deindustrialize, you gut unions, you deregulate, you gut the public sector. Guess what? You can be Karl Marx, or you can be John Maynard Keynes. It leads to a crisis of global overproduction and underconsumption. So we have to start telling people the reason why we're borrowing oodles of money from China, which is supporting our massive debt, is because, one, Chinese workers don't have the freedom to form free trade unions, then they're not raising up their own consumption levels, and people in the countryside are starving if they're not integrated into the coastal sectors. So A, we have to be for democracy and free trade unions in China, and people struggling to raise their living standards there and consume more at home. Because they export, and then they save, and the state lends the money and invests it in advanced capitalist countries, and somewhat empirically in some ways probably good in China, I mean in Africa. Sorry. But we borrow that money behind. The right wants to tell you we borrow because working class people are profligate. Working class people are living beyond their needs. Bullshit! Working class people have suffered a 20 or 30% drop in their real living standards, and people can't even get on relief. Single women with children are doubling up, tripling up. They're starving. Homelessness is going to rapidly increase. People are relying on friendship networks, kinship networks. Real living standards have dropped precipitously in this country for the bottom two-thirds of the society. And people who have a little collateral, most people are like what Bob Dylan said, they asked me for collateral and I pulled down my pants. But people who have a little collateral, their homes borrowed so that they can keep a roof over their head, they can repair their houses, they can keep a junk car running, or maybe they can send their kids to community or state college. They borrowed against their houses, and guess what? Because capital was not investing in productive activity for real human needs in this country, like building alternative energy, building high-quality housing, building mass transit. They engaged in a fire sale. They invested in finance, insurance, and real estate. Capital has been trying to make money on money in this country, not on real production and services. And that's what we have to talk about. We have to talk about that global imperialism, the search for cheapest wages, the exploitation of people in Mexico. That wasn't good enough. Half of Maggie doors have closed down and moved to China, Vietnam, and Southeast Asia. We ought to ask our Vietnamese comments tonight whether there are free trade unions in the 19 plants in Vietnam, by the way. But in any event, not to be sectarian, but in any event, what we really have to do is support global justice around the globe, but also we have to say, and this is not saying that there aren't immediate struggles among the unemployed, poor people, whatever, but even if you are still employed in this country, you are in demi-slavery, because this is the only country in the advanced capitalist world where there is not a right to form a free trade union. You cannot form a union in the private sector in this country. It's impossible. You're fired, it takes 2 years to have an election, you get your job back 20 years later from the NLRB after finally the Democrats win and put in some of these things. They said there is no right to form free trade unions in this country. We have to say if Ronald Reagan was right that there should be free trade unions in Poland, fuck it, there should be free trade unions in the United States. Look, I'm not saying, I don't know whether sort of the old mixed market, social democratic, northern European model is possible in a global capitalist world. We can argue about this. But we certainly want to say that capital should be regulated and controlled democratically so that the wealth and profits that people produce are used to enhance their lives. And we can have decent health insurance in this country. We can have better trade policy. We can have support free trade unions around the world. So I think the road to revolution runs through reform, but as people have said, the question is, are we in motion with grassroots people and communities that are going to win those reforms? And you know, we can talk about health care, which is right on the agenda, and the stimulus and stuff. There's plenty of stuff to do, and I think the vision of socialism, at least in terms of democratizing control over economic life, that still is something we're struggling our lives with.
You know, in some ways it's a socialist or a communist dream to be in a situation where there are so many revelations about the system. I mean, under Bush, think about it. You know, the biggest military budget in history. The biggest transfer of wealth to the top 1% in history. A foreign policy of endless war. That was their only way out. So there's a lot of revelations. There's the torture. There's revelations keep rolling out. Yesterday there was the announcement that United Healthcare, one of the biggest health insurance companies, made record profits, right? So there's a lot of revelations, but I guess I would flip the question, you know, the reality is the left is smart. The reality is that we're dispersed to some degree, that we have to find every opportunity, new opportunities, to discuss socialism. Because people, you know, there's all kinds of polls that people say, you know, capitalism isn't working, right? But I think that for the Communist Party, our experience is that we're being invited to speak in places you would not believe. Big meetings of philosophers. You know, we want to change the world, not philosophize there. You know, I'm marking up that quote, but you know what I'm saying? They are inviting us to come and be a part of the dialogue and the debate about the future direction. That's a great thing. We have to use where we're at. We're small. The left is small. We have to use some new technology. We have to participate in debates with the online social networking resources that are free and available, where debates about capitalism are going on, to raise the issue of what would socialism look like? What is an alternative system? If we don't do that, we will not grow. The other thing is that I